Hey everyone. So I'm going to read from Charm, and I have not gone live on YouTube before. So hopefully I can post this. This is Charm: How Magnetic Personalities Shape Global Politics by Julia Sonnevend. This book was written in 2024, published by the Princeton University Press, and they have copyrighted this. Yeah, okay, so let me get into it. We're going to start with the introduction. I may or may not read through the entire thing depending on how I'm feeling. I have set a timer for 30 minutes, like probably 5 minutes ago. So that's how much I'm going to read. I'm going to try to go live each time I read it. I do not own the rights to this book. I have borrowed it from my library at my university. And there's a whole story behind this book. I've been wanting to read it for so long, and I'm finally going to do it. I graduate very soon, and I need to return it. So let's get into it. Introduction. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was not a global celebrity before Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. Yet, as the invasion began, within days, President Zelensky had swiftly captured many hearts worldwide through a powerful charm offensive on social media. He reached faraway audiences and delivered tangible results. His charm was neither superficial nor ephemeral. Don't know what that means. Nor incidental. It secured actual weapons for Ukraine. No other example better shows that charm is a defining feature of contemporary global politics. When people discuss international diplomacy, they tend to characterize it in rational terms. They assume it's guided by realpolitik, where national self-interest, narrowly conceived, determines decisions. Narrowly conceived. Politics in this understanding is pragmatic and solely focused on tangible objectives, but non rational actors enter human affairs and decision making in every corner of social interaction. Human social activities may be about money, power, or ego, but they often operate by a smile, a gesture, a hint of affection that shapes decisions, attitudes, and preferences. Think about who's in power right now. Politics is not immune to this basic feature of human experience. The power of charm, as it shapes contemporary global politics of this topic, is the topic of this book. I look at politics as a site of performance where politicians present heroes and villains on stage to audiences who clap or boo in response. In theater and politics, individuals appear more important than complex processes. Political scientists have indeed described the past 30 years as a peak time in political personalization. We pay increasing attention to individual politicians and their close associates at the expense of institutions and organizations. We have a declining loyalty toward parties, believing that individuals are more to be trusted. And on a variety of media platforms, we are bombarded by instantaneous visual and contextual textual representations of individual politicians, making us feel we know them. I'm going to get down here. Under these conditions, the personal magnetism of leaders becomes a defining feature of political power. A form of personal magnetism often mentioned in political context is charisma. I would consider myself to have charisma. I would. All right. Charisma, originating in the ancient Greek term for divine gift. Certainly. I wonder how this angle is. Has been strongly attached to the church since Paul's letters to the early Christian community. More than 100 years ago, German sociologist Max Weber borrowed the term from its religious context and extended it into the secular realm. Weber argued that charisma is a certain quality of individual personality, by virtue of which he's set apart from ordinary men and treated as endowed with supernatural, superhuman, or at least specifically exceptional powers or qualities. While the beginning of the definition clearly has religious origins, the second part allows a broader application in public life. Weber also believed, in a quite modern way, that nobody is inherently charismatic. Audiences decide who possesses charismatic authority. Some people may find me cringy. I consider myself charismatic. But Weber considered the perceptions of charisma in a world that had not been yet seen the rise of Adolf Hitler, where mass media meant for print newspapers and when moving images of foreign leaders were confined to newsreels. We live in a radically different political and media environment. Professional political campaigns are now performed on a variety of media platforms for an international audience, and our everyday interactions, even with our close family, are represented and shared in a cascade of visual representations. We have the chance to interact with politicians online as if they were just like us. Contemporary leaders often appeal to our desire to see them as ordinary and authentic. Some win on the platform of being the person we would like to have a beer with. Their success is often tied not to defined and supernatural quality of charisma, but something more relatable, more everyday. This everyday magic spell politicians cast is what I call charm. Charm is the personal magnetism that rests on proximity to political tribes and manifests primarily through visual and textual communication on a variety of media platforms. To succeed in the current media environment, political leaders must appear as accessible, authentic, and relatable in their quest for power. Charm can also manifest in direct personal communication at parades, demonstrations, and political rallies. This is distinctly different from how charisma has been traditionally understood. Charisma relies on distance to political citizens and is mostly expressed through exceptional rhetorical performances in a limited set of media. Charles de Gaulle has been widely regarded as one of the most, if not the most, charismatic French leaders in history. He firmly believed that a charismatic leader should not appear as ordinary. He had to be somewhat withdrawn to create a certain aura of mystique or surprise around him. The ideal leader had to be grand or even pompous. De Gaulle's speeches reflected this view and centered on major concepts, lacking contemporary elements of relatability. The 10 most frequently used terms in his speeches were in this order: France, the country, the republic, the state, the world, the people, the nation, prosperity, peace, and the future. In contrast to de Gaulle's traditional distance based charisma, temporary leaders must appeal to the ordinary, even if they are sometimes admired as gods unconditionally. They aim to become one with their tribe. Even a politician as American multi-millionaire who owns Trump Tower in the heart of New York City, he must rally voters with messages they can identify with. Even if the politician's actual lifestyle could not be more different from those of his voters, he must perform as a person just like you. For instance, by wearing a red Make America Great Again hat. Is this requirement for politicians to appear as a next door neighbor absurd? It is, yet this is the test they have to pass now. If politicians succeed and their performance fuses with their audience, we will identify with them, and this identification will trump other considerations. The followers will stay with the magnetic character through the ups and downs of political life, without checks and balances, cheering on as soccer fans would do for their favorite players. Charm is two faced. It embodies both the positive features of seduction and the negative features of deception. Charm comes from the Latin carmen, song, verse, incantation. Even in its etymology, it refers to mediation, and to the power to seduce, and sometimes mislead through sound, text, and appearance. In politics and everyday life, seduction and deception walk hand in hand, highlighting two sides of the same coin. There's a constant tension around charming interactions as people are drawn to the seductive magic of charm, but at the same time express deep suspicion of it, fearing deception or charm's proximity to the uncontrollability of magic. In the early 21st century politics, charm is constructed and presented in mass media and social media. Offline charm translates to mediated charm, and there are forms of charm that are specific to particular media environments. Those of us who live in digital lives often move from offline presentation to charm and of charm to online and back. We talk to our family in the morning over breakfast, then post to social media, then meet somebody at the office or strike up a conversation with a stranger at a bus stop, then participate in an online meeting, then take a nap, followed by watching a presidential debate or the latest season of our favorite television show, and so on. Our presence and personality are continuously constructed in a variety of settings and on a series of media platforms. Politicians operate in a similar way, with the exception that almost all of their presented personas appear in mediated contexts. Most of us never meet the real politician, only the politician's constructions and by the media. Any understanding of political charm must take the media into consideration as a core ingredient. Social media are by no means the whole of how political leaders or would be political leaders communicate, but they have become indispensable and form the main focus of my book. Not my book, her book. The old charisma of the distance and elevated leader has not completely disappeared. Even today, politicians sometimes appear larger than life, striving to be a 21st century messiahs, and some followers behave more like worshippers than voters. As politicians present their identities to people on a number of platforms, they deploy their personal magnetism in various forms to fuse with targeted audiences. They mix tools of charisma and charm to reach their goals, both as charisma and charm rely on personality just for authority, as a justification for authority. In some ways, contemporary politicians strive toward the role of superheroes, mixing ordinary and extraordinary qualities. I'm going to skip the outline of this book and I'm going to get into it. Charm, a key word of contemporary global politics. A charming person draws you in like a vacuum cleaner. You may or may not want to resist, but you are going along. It is a bit like a dance, a gentle push and pull, where you figure out the steps and often just go with the flow. The magic occurs between you and the charming person in a particular place and time. It matters if you meet in a museum or at the local bodega. It matters how much time you have, what the weather is like, and how you feel that day. If everything aligns, you connect to the other person's performance and lose your focus, critical stance, and somewhat even your consciousness. If it does not work, you regard the performance as fake. You may even feel cheated. Charm is the ability to attract or delight as if by magic. The charming person casts a spell and makes you feel good about yourself. Magic by definition is magical because it is undefinable. You try to capture a butterfly, you are killing it. If you try to capture a butterfly, you are killing it just by your attempt to analyze. Social scientists are particularly good at this destructive behavior. We aim to catch and, by thorough analysis, paralyze living things. We call this behavior constructing clear definitions, but the outcome is a jargoned, lifeless writing no human being, except perhaps an author, would find enjoyable. The challenges of defining cannot stop us from trying to understand the elusive things that frequently shift their shapes. There are several other terms that we have never been fully able to define, and yet they change our lives in major ways. It has proven to be rather difficult to define humor. Be prepared to read the most boring definitions of your life. One of the most influential definitions managed to say almost nothing about humor. We define a humor soliciting stimulus as any social and non social event occurring purposely or inadvertently that is perceived to be amusing. What would not fit under this definition? Luck is another term that is central to life, yet quite hard to capture in words. Until very recently, sociology has been almost completely silent about luck, basically ignoring both the concept and its influence on social life. Yet, who could describe one's life trajectory without mentioning luck? Whose future would not involve a moment of unpredictable magic? Social work professor and mental health guru thrives on defining undefinable qualities, particularly taking pride on atypical definitions of love. We cultivate love when we allow our most vulnerable and powerful selves to be deeply seen and known. and when we honor the spiritual connection that grows from offering with trust, respect, kindness, and affection. It is possible to attack this definition from all sorts of directions. You can know this, but prefer to have a vulnerable definition over having none. In all these cases, crucial aspects of social life have been discarded or simply ignored by researchers because they are so hard to capture. Scientists struggled to define them, so they opted to look the other way. I believe the time has happened to personal magnetism and its various manifestations from charisma to charm. The Theory of Charisma by German sociologist Max Weber from the early 20th century was vague. Weber recognized that charisma is measured and decided by the performer's audience, and that the person perceived as charismatic has to accept and act on this designation. Charisma thus emerged in an interpersonal relationship between the followers and the person they perceived as charismatic. Weber also noted charisma's revolutionary force, its promise to bring change and inherent stability, as charisma falters if the leader is not able to bring the proposed reform. These observations are still relevant today as we try to identify the power of personal magnetism, but Weber failed to ever define what charisma ultimately contained. This bug was a feature in some ways, and it emphasized charisma's magic and shifting shape in distinct contexts. Well, for me, I would say that charisma actually, for me, and charm, I think that these things are subjective. I find myself very charismatic, but until I find the right people, I'm going to continue to be myself regardless. A lot of people won't like me for who I am, and that's fine. But in this definition, in Max Weber's definition, I think it's like Max Weber, actually, but whatever. Not whatever, but, you know, I don't know right now. But in his definition, it's like people around you find you charismatic, and if they do, then you have a duty to oblige, and then you have to get stuff done. That's just like part of your duty. But for me, I feel like I have to be who I am and that's my duty to ensure people that need to find me will, you know? Side tangent. The ability to capture hearts with personal magnetism is central to success in business, everyday conversations, and even politics today. Yet, paradoxically, we often present a rational understanding of social and public life, one built on the careful weighing of facts and calm deliberation. But non-rationality is everywhere in social interactions, whether or not we are afraid of taming charm because it is unknowable and incomprehensible. Charm shapes our global interactions from birth till death. As one journalist put it during the 2008 presidential elections in the US, Obama offers that something, call it charm, charisma, a positive vision for the future, a voice of empowerment, a role model for youth. Obama has it. Understanding that the special it, as it shapes political power, is the task. Why write a book about the term we cannot ultimately define? I will certainly not propose a straitjacket definition on charm that works in every context. That is a limitation I must accept at the beginning. But I cannot dissect charm's most common manifestations in politics and analyze its repeated techniques in the media. My aim is to try and get as close to the contemporary mediated political charm as possible. The first step, the charming interaction. The first step is to think through the Lego blocks of charming interactions. Charm is a performance put on display. It begins with a stimulation when people entering a social interaction express themselves to others. Audiences then perceive and evaluate this stimulation. The charming interaction happens in a particular stage. The stage, even when it is not mediated. The physical material circumstances of this interaction will also shape its perception. In an ideal case, the performer, the charmer, on the stage fuses with the audience. In some ways, they become as one. If the performance is successful, audiences find it authentic, relatable, and seductive. In these exceptional moments, audiences experience a dramatic breakthrough of personality. When the performance is not successful, people perceive it as fake, disconnected, or deceptive. Ultimately, the audience decides whether a performance is charming, and when it decides, it mobilizes values, beliefs, and cultural upbringings. Temporal factors also influence the charming interaction, particularly in the quickly shifting cultures of contemporary media. A performance that is deemed authentically charming in a given moment may fall into the category of cringe. That's me, for sure. Only a little time later. In these cases, the performance breaks down and ultimately fails. The reverse is also true. Cringe can turn into charming if the conditions change and the audience's evaluation shift, turning a failed performance into a successful one. I'm so thirsty and my throat is dry. Reading out loud is hard but so fun. Through the charming interaction, the charmer will try to capture your heart, making you feel like the only person who matters. Have you ever read a news profile of President Bill Clinton that does not mention his ability to make you feel exceptionally important? According to many accounts, he magically worked the room, making everyone feel as they were seen and heard. For some, his charm became lethal, as it was put by former White House intern Monica Lewinsky, with whom Clinton had a brief affair. I was enamored with him, like many others. He had a charisma to him, and it was a lethal charm, and I was intoxicated. Yet, beyond the general ability to single you out, it is challenging to capture the actual tools of charm. But there is now an extensive industry built on the belief that components of charm can be identified and even taught. They offer workshops and books to quickly teach you this skill for an exorbitant fee. I admit, sometimes I'm tempted to join this industry when academia seems unbearably confining. Researchers have extensively studied the various methods charmers as performers use to achieve fusion with their audiences. These methods include looking into your eyes, nodding, and a careful but powerful selection of metaphors, expressive language, eloquence, and presenting appealing vision, deep voice, speaking slowly, and having a mindful presence, among others. The list of methods is long and often contradictory. While some authors want you to nod more, others expect less nodding. Whether learned or just accidentally acquired, using these methods, the charmer aims to make you feel as the one and only in the world, seen, respected, and loved. In contemporary mass societies, the enhancement of being the one and only in the world is real. When many feel they are simply statics and part of the crowd, the ability to single out a person as an individual has a powerful appeal. Charm offers the person being charmed is the chance to stand out and be recognized as a valuable human being. In the moment of recognition, we shine the brightest as a unique and appreciated member of society. When the charmers perform their magic with the help of social media, television, radio, and other forms of media, we are looking for this feeling of recognition, understanding, and connection. As a British scholar put it, the media address the masses individually, recognizing anyone as someone. Politicians harness this power of mass media to generate charm. The media construct, represent, and narrate charm to us in a bundle of images and texts. But even narration does not really capture this relationship. On social media, people often brand themselves as charming and authentic, leaving other narrators out of the picture. It is no longer about the media simply representing charm, as our media images are incoherent to our self image, making it increasingly hard to separate the real from the mediated. Throughout history, human beings have presented their personal magnetism to others in one form or another. But until we have a widespread adoption of online visual media, we have not frequently moved our personality to mediated environments. Newspapers occasionally represented people, and over time, radio and television showed voices of images of celebrities and everyday people. But it is a relatively recent situation that we, ordinary people, on an hourly basis, present our faces, voices, and interaction on a screen. How personal magnetism is constructed and imagined is defined by the strange transport from offline to online and back. It's challenging enough to charm in everyday life too, but the challenges are truly daunting on media platforms. How can we translate personal magnetism, a distinctive quality of individuals, to media spheres where the personal touch can get easily lost? What changes? You are dealing with a diverse and fragmented audience. The performer acts on a virtual stage. Even basic features of the charming interaction, such as looking into the eyes of your conversation partner, are all but impossible. When it comes to public life, we meet politicians almost exclusively in mediated spaces, except for those occasional, well-planned handshakes and speeches at election events. Politicians must cast that magic spell in mediated spaces. Charming politicians, oops, their personalities must become ever more important to shape the image of their countries domestically and internationally. When people have a negative view of a country's political leader, this will influence their judgment of the country itself. Ahem. The perception of a foreign country's leader shapes people's decisions about whether to support sending military aid, whether to buy products from the country, or even whether to visit as tourists. Countries' leaders and their close associates thus serve as cognitive shortcuts or source cues to navigate complex and confusing information landscapes. The contemporary politicians effectively work as influencers, embracing the influencer election industrial ethos. Embracing the influencer industrial ethos, as communication scholar Emily Hunt called it. They provide consistent and relatable content on social media and then leverage the rewards, although often less direct economic terms than influencers use. Still, their mindset's the same. They generate loyal communities by producing consistent online content for their tribe and for those who attack their tribe. The audience's appreciation is thoroughly measured, quantified, packaged, and sold. Often, politicians' visual appearance, their very own bodies, come to represent a complex set of ideologies, obviously. This connection is between the perception of a leader and his or her country is, of course, absurd if we think of it only in irrational terms. While President Trump brought a political stance radically different from President Obama's, the country did not change radically until in January 2017. There were elements of Trumpism beforehand and elements of Obamaism stayed on. Yet, international leaders perceived the country fundamentally differently. All right, my timer, it's gone off, and I'm stuffy, and my throat is sore, and my mouth is dry, and it's just so crazy because this is still chapter 1. How many chapters does this have? I'm looking to see how many pages. It's going to take a hot minute to get through chapter 1. All right, so I'm on page 19 of chapter 1, kind of like the middle of the page. If you want to get the book and follow along, I'll try to go live again. Chapter 1 goes to page 42. So I hope I can post this. You're just going to have to ignore my double chin or whatever is going on with my face because I'm trying to get this content to you. It's not about my appearance. It's about what's happening here. So I am looking forward to being on YouTube, and I hope that you can join me. I am into political science. I'm an international relations major with a concentration in peace and conflict. I am co-chair of a coalition at my campus, and I am in a sorority. I'm in like 4 honors societies. I'm in the honors program at school. I'm graduating in the early December of this year, very close. I have like 30 assignments that are due very soon. And I need to read this book. I feel like it's really important. It's not a class topic, but I need to create a commercial for my Get Out the Vote campaign and also a write-up of how it went doing Get Out the Vote. It's a nonpartisan initiative that is by Citizens Collab. And basically it's just encouraged to get, it's a way to encourage people to get out there and use their democratic voice to vote, be part of the democracy process. We are a democratic republic in the United States, and it is something that we need to start bringing up. We need to start having these conversations before we lose our ability to do so, not because we are censored, but because we lack the intelligence as a nation. We do not want to get to that point. Our children are our future. We need to start speaking up for them. We need to start getting involved with our school boards. We need to start being more involved with our state, our county, our local legislators, and getting out there, because we will be silenced if we don't stand up, and it's not because of anybody that's going to do it. It's going to be a lack of culture. It's going to be going the other direction, and it's only because we're going to lose the sense for it. And I already see it. We don't have conversations in line anymore. We don't talk to each other. We look around and we avoid it. If we're around people and we're waiting, we don't wait together anymore. We don't do those things anymore. And we are losing that gift. So, my timer's still going off. My mouth is so dry. I'm so thirsty. My dog has come to lay with me. I painted her back there. Oop, this way. Boop, boop, boop. Okay. Well, ciao for now, everyone. Welcome to my world. And check you next time.